It is now time to hit social media for our hashtag segment. For that, we'd like to welcome in Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, and we have Fast Market contributor Jenny Horn with us as well to talk some Snapchat.
Snapchat, I have earnings, yes. So they have earnings Tuesday after the market close. And of course, Snap is one of those companies, I didn't even realize this before my research this morning, they're up 166% in the last year. I mean, that is crazy. That is
mostly because this stock got creamed.
Right, so they've kind of come back, but they are up 21% in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
So this has been a good growth story for Snap. And if you look at some of their key metrics, daily active users grew 13% year over year. They're expected to gain 5 million subscribers in this report. And momentum is still really, really strong because of their ad growth. So it does look like a pretty positive picture for Snap going into their earnings report. But this is a very competitive space. You have big names like, of course, Facebook and Facebook's Instagram and now TikTok. So when I was searching for tweets this morning, it was just funny because it's like everyone loves to compare all these different social media companies, even though I think we use them for all different things. We were joking how you don't really use Snapchat anymore as you've gotten older. My little brother uses Snapchat like a crazy person. So it's kind of all it has to do with your preferences. But our first tweet says, watch the TikTok US commercial. I honestly think they are going to eat into Snapchat shares heavily. Earnings release is not going to be good for Snap. So Andy, I'm curious, with a name like TikTok was kind of the big name I saw on social media this morning. Do you think that this affects Snapchat's consumers' happiness because now there's just another name in this saturated space?
Yeah, there's another name, but there also seems to be an unlimited appetite for these types of things among their users. And when LikeFolio looks at this, we like to look at what we call purchase intent mentions. It really means people talking about installing, opening an account with Snapchat for the first time. And you can see the heyday is over, but the growth has stabilized, and we think that's a big story for Snapchat, because like Kevin was alluding to a year ago, things were really, really bad for Snapchat. And now we've got purchase intent mentions, in other words, new installs, looks pretty stable. We think that they'll be pretty much in line with expectations. And then this graph is consumer happiness, where that line shows the percentage of people when they express an opinion about Snapchat one way or another being happy or upset with the platform. That's really stabilized as well. It's not at levels that it used to be, but they haven't come out with those user interface changes that really drove people off. And they've added some new features which has excited their user base a little bit in December. Some of the, kind of shallow fake technology where you could put your own face on GIFs and things like that. So I think Snapchat's in a pretty good spot. Their ad revenue, they're doing a really good job of monetizing the existing user base, and they've stopped bleeding that user base, which I think are the two key things for investors as they go into this call.
Andy, I think the really cool thing about all these names is the demographic issue with them, right? How they seem to almost divide by age groups. I'm relatively sure it's like the reverse trying to get in a bar. I think if I tried to get on Snapchat, they'd deny me. Because if they carded me, how old are you? Good Lord, you cannot be on Snapchat. I think it'd be one of those situations because it seems like the youth are on Snapchat, right? And then people my age are on Facebook, and then there's that Instagram thing that kind of eats up everybody.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think Snapchat's user interface is that velvet rope, kind of outside the cool kids club, because, guys like us just aren't going to figure it out. The first couple times you use it, it's like, I'm done. I'm out of here. And I think that's a pretty common experience. But the people that are in it, they do love it, and they are. It's just good to see Snapchat kind of learn from its mistakes that it made in terms of that user interface change it did. And, the company's in pretty good shape. Like Jenny said, the stock's up a massive amount in the last year. I'm not sure it's worth chasing here, but we do think this company's found its footing, and that's a good thing going forward.
Andy, you're fairly active on social media, at least on Twitter, so you're familiar with all these companies. I kind of want to walk through just each one of them real fast and then think about, as an advertiser, why you'd want to be on each one. So Facebook, communities, lots of businesses. Obviously, Instagram's also under that. Pretty much open profiles. Most people aren't private. They don't have to accept people. You can just kind of follow people, and you're more open with the world. It's not as private. Snapchat, on the other hand, is like your close friends, more of a private, intimate kind of ecosystem. Pinterest is people logging on that, looking for ideas. So if I'm thinking as an advertiser, okay, Facebook's got a huge web, that makes sense. Instagram, people are fairly, open. They're not as private. They have bigger webs as well. That makes sense. Snapchat, what are you exactly advertising to? It's like a small friends group. Pinterest makes sense though because it's, you know, people looking to buy things or looking for ideas. So to me, Snapchat trying to like convert their users to monetizable, advertisable, you know, users doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but they seem to be able to do a little bit of it.
Yeah, I think actually the answer is in the medium itself, and the Snapchat user can sit there for hours on end looking at, you know, 15 to 30-second videos that their friends make. And so it's not much of a stretch to go over and look at what the advertiser's trying to show you, especially while you're waiting on that next notification from a friend. So I think it's really, you know, the how immersive the advertisement can be, and advertisers are willing to pay up for that on Snapchat like they might not be able to do on Facebook or Instagram, simply because of the way Snapchat users use the platform.
Yeah, and I don't think Snapchat has done as good of a job as Instagram, like curating the advertising content, because when you're on Instagram, you see ads that you actually kind of want to see. I mean, Oliver Rennick and I were joking, we get like cat food advertisements, which were like, they actually are very beneficial to us as cat owners. But then on Snapchat, it seems like there's these random ads, like I had a Clorox ad. I mean, just like completely random. They haven't done a good enough job yet of curating to each of their users' needs, I think. And I actually texted my 16-year-old brother and I was like, why do you still use Snapchat? Because I'm not cool enough to be on Snapchat. And he said he likes that his messages disappear, nothing's permanent, which I was like, that's really scary. So from the 16-year-old perspective, that's what makes it cool still, which I was like, I'm gonna tell mom that you said that. But I was like,
on
that is
live
so
television.
wrong. Yeah. So our next tweet says, Pinterest along with Snap will be their two biggest longs into their earnings releases. Growth is being rewarded this earnings season. I can't think of two larger growth stories in socials. Lyft after that, which I thought Lyft was interesting, but Andy, in terms of stock movement, I mean, what do you do with a stock that's run up this far, this fast? I mean, like we mentioned, it's just kind of a comeback story, but do you think it's possibly at the end of its growth?
Well, what you do with a stock like this is you be very careful. I think that's the number one thing. This stock has a history of moving in really big movements. Like you said, 165% or 166% over the past year. The year prior to that, it moved from, you know, $20 to $9 or $6 very quickly. So you have to be careful with this. You have to understand the volatility of the underlying here. Whether it's, you know, kind of run out of juice on this comeback story, I'm not sure. I think the reaction to this earnings report will be very key. I'm going to stay on the sidelines, watch the reaction, and then if there are some, you know, chinks in the armor, it starts to move lower after this, it starts to disappoint investors, I think there's probably an opportunity on the bearish side because that kind of we've stopped the bleeding rally is over. But until then, you know, I want to see some indication from the data and from the market reaction before I take a position on a stock like this.
Building on that too, Andy, I know in the past you've said, you know, when these stocks first come public that you guys like to wait and watch them, kind of let the market digest and evaluate these companies based off the new earnings and stuff that's going to be public and how they change as a public company from a private company. Has there been enough data yet where you guys feel comfortable trusting kind of the value of where the market is and then comparing it to your data, regardless if you find an edge one way or another in each particular one?
Yeah, there has. We've been through enough of a cycle where we've seen our data be very predictive of that move from $20 to $7 based on, you know, kind of an outflux of people based on the user interface fiasco that happened. You know, so we have enough data to show, look, our data has been predictive of this when there are large outlier type of events. And there's no large outlier type of event happening now, which is what puts me on the sidelines and says, hey, let's see how the market reacts to this. And we just kind of wait and see and look for the next big outlier event. Maybe Snapchat has a great feature that everybody goes crazy for, or maybe they have another disastrous UI, or maybe a competitor like TikTok starts to get market share. But as of right now, we don't see anything like that. We see kind of business as usual for Snapchat, which, you know, considering where they were a year ago, is very good news.
All righty, Andy, well said. We'll see what happens when they do report, but we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us this morning. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
All righty, thanks to Jenny as well.